And I turn it over to Mr. Zafar Malik. He is the Dean for Development and University Relations at East West University. We're very privileged to have you as our moderator for this panel. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Although I'm a dean, but today I'm actually playing another role. I'm an artist, I'm a painter, so because this is to do with the arts, so I'm doing that. So I'm very honored and humbled actually. I have very distinguished panelists, and I feel I'm not really quite adequate for this, but I'm pleased that they've all made it. Foz actually was traveling the world. I think she was the other side of the world yesterday, and so she made it, and it's brilliant. So with Malik and Sadia, I'm very grateful that you made this time. Today is a great day actually because I feel very elated that Open has invited artists to come and share their ideas. It feels like our stars are aligned because I found a quote by Rumi, no less, and I think that fits this occasion. I quote, "There is a community of the spirit, join it, and feel the delight of walking in the noisy street and being the noise," end of quote. I want to thank Haris and his team for taking this initiative. And I think I speak on behalf of my panelists, artists here, and we hope that it will become integral to Open, and we may become more wholesome and rounded as a community going forward. Artists are, I think, naturally entrepreneurial. Of course, some of us do not realize our potential till we pass away. But seriously, though, we are the ones who think out of the box and dream of a better world. In fact, we are somewhat utopian, in the words of that brilliant Punjabi sage, Bulle Shah. And I'll read that. Chal bullya, chal othe chaliye jithe sare anne. Na koi saadi zaat pechane, na koi sanu manne. Oh, Bulle Shah, let's go to a place where everyone is blind, where no one knows our caste, and neither does anyone hold me in esteem. Throughout the ages, I think the artists have added color and candor to life, and I think we may be useful even today when the world is increasingly dark and dangerous. Well, thank you for that. And I shall very briefly, I think you've seen their resumes. They have resumes going to 4 or 5 pages. They're so distinguished. They've done so much. But I'll just add what is personal to me, I think, in every case. Well, Fawzia Mirza is actually a rock star to me. She is just absolutely brilliant. An attorney, activist, actor, comedian, writer, producer, and a dynamo of a person. I've witnessed her meteoric rise in the last few years. I first met Fawzia when she and her friends were actually making a documentary on Allama Iqbal. And since then, I've seen nothing but her chalking up success after success. Fawzia. Go to Malik Gilani. I'm really in awe of Malik Gilani's success at envisioning and successfully operating Silk Road Rising, a theater company with full productions for over a decade and a half, primarily articulating and celebrating the other. I love the vision statement of his company and want to share it with you. I'll quote from the statement. Silk Road Rising understands that cultures are inherently linked. We seek the intersections of cultures without denying the specificities of cultures. And we strive to create a world that values art over ideology and inquiry over dogma. I think those are the kind of sentiments that these people bring to life. And I think that's why I think it's an awesome thing that, we've been invited to share our worldview with all of you. Last but not least, Sadia Okeli is a very dear friend and a fellow painter. I have been privileged to have shared many exhibitions with her. She's a true polymath, an economist by training, a printmaker, painter, curator, art educationist, and now a filmmaker. Sadia has exhibited and curated art shows internationally, but more specifically, in Chicago, she does a superb job of curating and organizing the Lahore-Chicago Sister City Biennial event at the Chicago Culture Center, and many other shows at various venues and galleries. So with that, I think I'll pose the question to them, starting with Fawzia. Talk to us about the inspiration, why you do what you do.
I don't know if this is on. Now it's on. So I don't know. I guess why do I do what I do? Well, as Zafar, who's an amazing human being, said, I was a lawyer. So I would say that to most of you, I'm probably one of the worst business people in the room because I became an actor the worst way possible, which is on a lawyer's debt. In a very different position than many of you are in the room. So I was a lawyer. I went because it was the right thing to do as a good Desi girl. You either get married or you get an education, or I'm sure there's other options. Those were the two given to me. I chose going to law school because I had no other idea what to do with my life, which is actually one of the top 5 reasons they tell you not to go to law school. Nonetheless, I persevered. I went to law school. I took the bar. I passed. Who knows how, but I did. And then I realized that my most marketable, ability at the time was actually being a lawyer. So even though I wanted to be an actor. And so I went to law school, became a lawyer by day, lawyering by day, acting by night, which takes up all the hours in the day. And I left the law after about 3 years. I was a litigator. And I actually left the law to do sexual violence prevention work, which I know you're like, what are you talking about? So I did a comedy educational touring show about date rape prevention. And I toured to colleges around the country, from community colleges in Kansas to Ivy League schools. And then I started touring around the world to military installations. So any number of Marines, Air Force men and women, people in the Navy, they've seen the show that myself or someone else in the company that I worked for did. And that was actually where I learned. I always thought comedy was really powerful, but doing that show, I realized it doesn't matter where you come from, what you have, who you are, we're part of the same culture when we're here. And actually, the global culture is kind of really similar. And the things that we're fighting against, whether it's date rape or sexual harassment, or just building empathy for human beings, which I think is how we can change the world, that is all similar. So I did that show for a long time. And then as an actor, I started realizing that people don't want to cast me necessarily the way I actually am. So, I am very openly a, Pakistani, Muslim, queer woman. And so people will look at me and say, well, you're not Muslim. And I'm like, well, yeah, I am. I'm right here. And then they'll be like, well, you're not Pakistani. I'm like, no, I definitely am. I'm right here. I'm not a hologram. And they're like, you can't be all these things at once. And I'm like, yeah, I can. I just said so. And so what I realized is that instead of waiting to be cast in something where someone said I can be who I am, I decided to just start writing. And I started writing my own work. So I made some short films and some web series. And what I realized, and I made my first feature film this year, which world premiered at South by Southwest. And part of what I started realizing is that, everyone's gonna tell you how to be who you are and what it takes to do anything. Everyone is always gonna have a compartment they wanna fit you in and a rule that they think you should live by. And what I realized is that the only way for me to do what I do, to do it well, to be the workaholic that I am, which is probably how we relate the most, is I'm a workaholic. I just do it as an artist, is that you have to transcend the noise. And so for me to be who I am, to do the work that I do, I transcend the noise of what anyone else thinks about what I'm doing, what kind of art I'm making, whether I'm wearing too much denim or not. And so that's kind of my mission. And as a creator and as an artist, my mission is to use comedy to break down stereotypes across all of these different identities and create space for people and create empathy. And I think comedy is a really powerful way to do that. I've gotten to be on their stage several times. So yeah, that's I guess my background a little bit. You want to go? Was that the question? Did I answer it? Does it matter?
Thanks for having me. My name is Malik Galani, and I am the co-founder of Silk Road Rising. We're actually based right here in downtown Chicago, across from the Daily Plaza. I created the company with my life partner, his name is Jamil Khoury, in response to 9/11. So go back with me to September 2001 and just think about the event and how did the event reveal itself to you, and how did you think that this is going to shape the world in which you live. So for me and my life partner, the revelation was that our world has changed forever, and something that we had never thought about, which was articulating our story, all of a sudden is more important because others are speaking for us, right? So, most of us watch TV and movies. What are they? They are reflections that others have about who we are. And we wanted to change that narrative because the narrative was that there is something wrong with us, whether the us is Muslim, whether the us is an Arab, whether the us is that we are minorities. And so we spent a year after that incident, after 9/11, talking to community members about how do you think we should respond to this event, and how do we take ownership of the dialogue back so that we can tell our story better. We settled on creating a theater in response to that conversation. And what we realized is when someone goes to the theater, they are going there because they want to be changed. No one turns on a TV show to say, I want to be bored. You turn it on because you want to be entertained. But what is entertain? Entertaining is challenging a supposition, an idea that you already have. So that is what we try to do. We've been doing it for about 15 years. And a lot of things have changed in those 15 years. So we talk, all morning we've been talking about technologies that disrupt, right? And so the way that we disrupted the sector was by our very existence. When we were first creating our theater company, we were told there is no need for you to exist, because if there was, it would already exist. And that is the most ridiculous thing anyone can ever say. And Steve Jobs said if he had asked people, do you want an iPhone, they would have said no. Ford said if I had asked people, what do you want, they would say faster horses. They would not say a car because they had not imagined a car. And so part of the entrepreneurship that reveals in the work that all of us do is we think beyond what people are looking for. So the one massive and major shift that we were able to make in Chicago's cultural sector is that now the actors who are on our stage, like Fauzia, playwrights that we have been producing, directors that we have been nurturing, are getting work across Chicago, getting work in Hollywood, getting work in LA. And that is no small feat. When you have a Muslim play being done at Goodman, which is one of the largest theaters in the nation, you are now speaking to thousands of people. That power we did not have until this particular work was being done. So if I have a reservation, my reservation is only that our community does not seem terribly connected or interested in storytelling. Today, we heard from so many amazing, successful people, but many of us sit behind a desk, right? We sit behind the service that we are offering. What we have to do and what my theater company offers is we put you on the stage. You are now speaking for yourself. And every time you choose to not support someone like Fauzia or something like Silk Road or the artists that we have here, you are then choosing to stay behind a screen. And when you're behind a screen, someone can project something on it, and it's not going to be in your favor. So creating art is activism. Creating art is standing up. Creating art is saying, I do not accept the status quo. I'm a change maker. So if there's one takeaway I would like for you to have is put your money where your mouth is, right? And we talk about how we are good and amazing people, but in order for that to really, really happen, you need to support the arts.
Hello. Well, thank you very much to Fauzia and Malik Saab and Zafar Saab for the immense introductions, and especially Haris and the Open Management Committee for adding this third dimension to your entrepreneurship conference. Really, really appreciate us being here. This means something. It means we've arrived. I'm Sadia Okheli. I'm the founder of Explore Their Stories. We are a program. Our goal is to produce inspirational documentaries to inspire and educate through films. And these personal narratives will celebrate diversity and hopefully will open up a dialogue on global stereotypes and also, you know, just these ideas that we have within us that we never find a forum to talk about. In this room, we have one of the brilliant minds and most successful people sitting here. Each one of us has a gift. Some of us know what it is, and some of us are on our way to find out what that gift is. That's our core, that's our DNA, which will guide us towards success. Us, the creative minds, and myself personally, as Malik just pointed out, we have this gift of being very sensitively keen, tuned into what is happening now and what's coming our way. Our business, we are in business for sure. Our business is the business of ideas, which is strengthened and powered by this ability to be able to gauge and see what is coming our way. The ground beneath our feet is shifting. Profound changes in technology, politics, world demographics. The norm from yesterday will definitely be away from the norm tomorrow. We at Explore Their Stories want to can these stories, can these narratives to link our past to our future. Let us, this is the right time to build these linkages. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, now is the time. Stories of wisdom, of dignity, of service, of philanthropy, all over the world. Let us be very inclusive with what we are doing. We are in conversations with writers, with creative minds, with scientists, and our inaugural production is on the minority of the minorities. And that's where we celebrate what is excellence and what is the brand of honesty. The Zoroastrian community, for example. We are making a film on the life and work of the novelist, the very brilliant mind, Bapsi Sidhwa. We are in conversations with individuals like Dr. Don Hopkins, people, he's not here, but you know, a local Chicagoan, Dr. Tipu Siddiq, is on my dream list to cover. He's made great advances on the treatment of Lou Gehrig's disease. Giant names like Sherazad Alam, she's big in the world of ceramics. Like Dr. Vinay Kumar, I mean, the giant behind pathology, and he's been at the University of Chicago with Dr. Alia Hussain. I mean, their work is just amazing. We just need to be able to focus and celebrate it. My dream project would be on the history of ukiyo-e printmaking traditions, right to the masters of Tetsuya Noda and Ryoji Ikeda in Japan. The list is long, thankfully long. Technology is on our side. Film is power. The impact of film is unquestionable. With one click of a button and a stellar production, we can reach thousands of minds anywhere in the world, and especially the underserved. You know, this is our answer. A child anywhere under a tree can get to our programs. It is definitely just great to be at the table where values are being formulated. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Malik somewhat answered this, but I would like all of you to respond to this. How has the community response been in each case? I know that we are minorities, and most of us, our concerns are of the margins. You know, how do you think our community is doing today in terms of responding to these kind of works? Yeah. Please, Fawzia.
I don't know what I did. Oh yeah, there we go. So I also will apologize. I probably have to leave in like 10 minutes. I'm on another panel at the Chicago International Film Festival about satire and politics. So you can come to that. You know, I think that, you know, I'm a really positive person. I think that you have to think positively to achieve and reach anything you want. And the negativity is literally just weighing you down and weighing everything around you down. That being said, I do not think that our community or my community, my brown community, is why I've been able to be successful as an artist. I would say that as much as I love where I come from and all of my work, I write so much about my mother. You know, some of you have seen my play that I'm turning into a screenplay. I write so much about where I come from, what I'm inspired by, who I am, my food, my mother, Bollywood, Sharmila Tagore, Shabana Azmi. This is what I write about. But I wouldn't say that the people in those communities have historically showed up or been supportive. Now I get it. There's a lot that I talk about that may not meet everyone's ideals of or value system. But the problem is we historically come from deeply artistic cultures, some of the most artistic cultures in the world, but then somehow we forgot about it. And we decided that it didn't matter anymore. Or someone told us that it doesn't matter anymore, more importantly. And here's the thing, it matters. It matters because the only way to change the world is to change the narrative. And the only way to change the narrative is to write it yourself instead of wait for somebody else to write it for you. Because their story is not our story. And every single person in this room has a story. Every single person in this room is a storyteller, is an artist, could do a one-person show, and you probably already do it anyway when you come home and talk to a family member about your day. The three of you did it earlier on stage, you know? And so I feel that the community, I can tell you now that there are more people who want to support what I'm doing than there were 10 years ago. I don't know if people are putting their money where their mouth is. You know what I mean. Mouths, whatever. But there are some. And I think it takes time and it takes a lot of cultivation. And I think the individual relationship building has been very important for me. And the kindness has been big for me. But for example, in our film, so my film, it was an indie film, world premiered at South by Southwest, had like 6 investors. The only investor, there's one South Asian investor. That was Nabila Rashid. I'm outing you here that you invested in my movie, our movie, whatever. You know what we mean. So she was the only South Asian investor who put in as an investor. Now, there were plenty of other people, some are in this room, who donated to the cause, which is amazing. But why is it that the South Asians don't want to invest in a movie? Is it because maybe it's not the greatest return on your investment? Fair enough, but we donate to other things. So why don't we see the art as powerful, as important, as useful of an investment, not necessarily as this financial return where we're gonna make XXX on the dollar, but as in our future, as in our community's future, as in our children's future? That is the thing that I don't have the answer to. Or maybe I do and I don't want to say it out loud. Or maybe you already know why and you're like, because nobody cares. You know what I mean? We maybe know and don't talk about it enough. So there were 5 other, white guys who invested. And they thought that, yeah, I want to be part of telling the Muslim South Asian woman's story that stars Shabana Azmi as Fauzia's mother. But none of the other South Asian people wanted to. So why are they more interested in us than we are? Who are we trying to be that doesn't include us? So that's the thing that I often find, and I've never really shared that publicly before, but I find that to be something that holds us back because and keeps us from competing at the highest levels. It's like we're talking about having a seat at the table. Yeah, everyone needs a seat at the table to have a voice. But that table, what do you watch? Everyone is watching the news. They're watching television. They're watching movies. They're watching videos on their phone. And if you're not investing somehow in that content, you are not represented, and we will never be whole, and we will always suffer from colonization. That's what I think about it. And so, yeah. That's something that I'm thinking a lot about.
Yeah, let me build on that by talking about how arts can also shift policy. Yeah. So it's not just it's A&E, arts and entertainment, but it's actually policy making as well. So I'll give you a brief example. My company was working in Naperville to look at the issue of zoning when it comes to building houses of worship, particularly when it comes to building a mosque. And so ICN, about 5 years ago, was trying to get a zoning permit, and there were a lot of hate sort of messages that were being distributed in that particular neighborhood. There was one that said no reg heads on the street, and so on and so forth. So we decided, well, what is the issue with Muslims getting houses of worship? We started looking at a national lens, and we realized that this is a problem that's national. It's happening in every sort of state wherever Muslims are trying to build masjids. So we went to the mosque leadership at ICN, and we said, we want to create a play called Mosque Alert that looks at this very issue. And we want to set it in Naperville. And they said, well, the idea is great, but can you set it somewhere else? And I said, well, why is that? And they said, well, we don't want to antagonize those who are our elected officials. And it gave me an insight. And the insight was that we are afraid of owning the violations that are being brought upon us. If we otherize, and if we say this is a problem that someone else has, then the problem just cannot be resolved. So what did we do? We went to the mayor's office, and we said, this was when George Pradle was the mayor, and I said, do you know that you have tax-paying citizens who are afraid of expressing themselves? Now, this man fought in the Korean War. He started crying. He said, I did not realize that I'm the mayor of a town where people are afraid of expressing themselves. And as a result of that relationship, we built a partnership with the mayor's office, with the zoning department, with major business owners in downtown Naperville, and created a new play called Mosque Alert, which was performed there. And now the zoning department in Naperville is debating a proposal we've given to them, which is to rewrite the definition of a house of worship. So the way they were defining a house of worship, they say it is where people congregate to pray. Examples are a church and a synagogue. And we said we would like you to add mosque as an example. When they do that, and when someone who's an antagonist looks up the zoning law and says an example of a house of worship is a mosque, all of a sudden you are puncturing that bubble of resentment that person has. And this policy shift is coming from creation of an artwork. So it's not just, we're supporting, great stories, we're supporting literally rewriting the regulations that define our practices in this country.
So I'm going to ask a question of most of us, each one of us. How many of you hold your breath when you hear on the news the T word? Bomb exploded, something happened, right? Most of us, our gut cringes and we just hope that it's not one of our names, right? How many of us, our spirit soars when one of us gets chosen for the Nobel Prize, or a filmsmith, her film goes places. I mean, one investor, and look how many windows that film. She's sitting right here. Can you give her a round of applause, Pakistani-American? No, honestly. We win the Oscar twice in a year, and our heart soars with pride. We are a brand. We are Pakistani-Americans. Each one of us has taken a very difficult course and path to be where we are right now. It is similar and different, but it was not easy. And because, as Jai said, because of that difficulty, it became easy, because we really won where we are right now. Let us please, these are lone paths. Let us bring them together, amalgamate. Even this room, if we choose, each one of us, most of you are successful. This is the 5 projects that I will patronize for the next 1 year. Can you imagine the difference it'll make? We do. There's patronage from our communities, but it is for the mainstream. For us to be a part of the mainstream, we need to start beginning to support ourselves. Please, let us begin from where we are. We amalgamate, we put our brains and our hearts and our partnerships together. We become a force. We take our position as global citizens of excellence. We shine this brand and we leave it shining for our next generations. Thank you.
I know it's just got so interesting. We could go on, but I've been signaled that there's very little time. So I would open it to the public for any questions that any one of you have, to any panelists. So please. Anyone? No questions? Nabila?
I had a comment. I usually can talk quite loudly, but I guess I should have faced that way. I listened to and watched Mosque Alert as it was developing, and it is a remarkable, remarkable piece of artwork, and I'm very, very proud of it and very proud to have been involved with it. And I just wanted to add that with respect to changing policy, we have to be involved with our city governments and with our local governments. I am part of the Chicago Commission on Human Relations, and frankly, both, Malik has been, I think Nora, and I know you know the folks on the commission. We kind of ghettoize ourselves. And we think that the rules and the regulations are not out there to help us move in the world, and they are, and we have to take advantage of them. For example, the ordinances that, the commission, that My mic went off. Oh, it came back on again. There we go. So anyway, it was just more of a comment rather than a question. And I know Fozia also has to run, so I'm not going to ask her anything. I'll save it for another time.
I'd like to just add a question. So to the point of asking our community to put their money where their mouth is. So if there are people who are intrigued and motivated to support the arts for the very eloquent reasons that you said, how do they go about this? Because my belief is, yes, there's an apathy, but they also don't know how and where. So maybe you can be more specific as to that for the audience. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have a website?
It's fine.
I'd know how to use this by now. I do. I'm going to give you some information, and then I'm going to leave because Malik is very good at all of this stuff. An amazing fundraiser and works with the community and some of the top theaters in the country and the world, really. So really someone to know. You know, I'm someone who makes a lot of independent content. www.faziamirza.com is my website. Right now, there's this really weird Burger King anti-bullying video, which maybe some of you saw. I'm in that. Don't worry about it. No, it's lovely. But anyway, but I feel like the way to support, it's monetarily, but honestly, I have to tell you that as an artist, and this is my bleeding heart, when you show up, I care about you in a very different way. And that's sometimes free. When you show up, when I say, hey, I have a ticket, I'll give you a ticket to come to my show, or come to our house to show you this, or whatever it is, go to the play, go to the theater. If you show up, my heart looks at you as someone who cares about me as a human being. And that literally is priceless. So that is the number one thing. Yeah? Oh, you're showing up. You're showing up. But so that's a huge thing. And then just going to the theater, going to see film, showing people. You know, there was a film called Meet the Patels. How many of you saw it in the room? Yeah? Guess what? That was the first film that a commercial Hollywood decided brown people mattered. Isn't that crazy? That was the first Hollywood Western film where sales agents, distributors, Netflix, Amazon, all these people decided, oh, brown people show up to the theater. We should start making content for them. Their dollar, they have money that they'll spend. But it took that film to do it. And what I'm saying, if you show up and be heard, you can not only be part of making that content, but you can tell those people that we matter and we matter as a community. I love you all. You're lovely. Thanks for inviting me. Haris, I'm glad we did this year. Bye. I love you.
I'll just...
I think anyone who's interested in helping or supporting any of this, I think Haris is a good contact. So Open, you can contact Open, and then we can make a headway there. Malik, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that obviously there's the financial way to support, right? It's silkroadrising.org. But there are many ways that doesn't cost anything. And in Islam, there's a saying, you know, if you say something kind, you're doing God's work. So one way you can help is by talking to people about the work that's been created. So I have a brief story. I had a board member, a Pakistani woman who was on our board, and she would never bring anyone to any plays that were about Muslims. And after she left the board, she said, I was too ashamed to bring people because I didn't want them to think of me as someone who's only interested in my own story. You don't have to feel bad for being interested in your own story. You should be, okay? I mean, most people in the world are interested in representing themselves, so there's nothing wrong in promoting the arts, in hosting a housewarming party, in getting on the board of a not-for-profit, and of course, finally, through just making a contribution.
Thank you. You want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, all has been said. I would just say, let's go out and do put our best foot out there and do the best we can, not only for our community, but be very inclusive with our programming. You know, what we do for others around us is exactly what we want them to do for us. Let's not hide behind these screens. Let's go out there and really be genuinely interested in promoting stories of excellence in any community. Support us, exploretheirstories.org, all of these organizations. We are a non-for-profit. But most of all, keep your children engaged with what we are, what we have been, and where we are going. Thank you so much for being here.
I want to thank my panel. They've been very insightful. Thank you very much, and thank you for Open, for giving us this privilege to share our side of the stories with you. And thank you very much for listening, for being here. And we hope that, this can continue. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.